Hey, it's Brendon Payne with Century 21, and I appreciate you tuning in for this month's market update. We are now starting the second quarter. It's hard to believe we're already through the first quarter of 2021. I wanted to cover a topic that I've been getting a lot of questions about, and that is people that are thinking about selling. They own a property, they're thinking about selling, but they're not sure if now's the right time. And they always will ask, what makes it the right time to sell right now? Because obviously we're in a seller's market. The prices are really strong, but if you own property, that sometimes selling in the same market that you're buying can be a challenge because the individual markets don't operate independently. If you sell in a high market, you might be buying in a high market. So I wanted to cover three types of sellers that are thinking about selling right now. There's others, but these are probably the most prevalent sellers right now in our market. Number one are people that are selling because they're moving away. They're going somewhere different. So at that point, their options, and they've got a few of them, they can keep the home empty, just use it as a second home. They could go ahead and rent it, or they can sell it. Now, in our market right now, currently, the rental market's very strong too. So renting is definitely an option, wouldn't be hard to do. But most of the time, people will find out that being an absentee landlord from a couple hundred miles away can be difficult. So even though a rental is possible, it might not be the best thing for that individual seller, especially if they haven't owned rental properties before. So the person that is looking at potentially moving away is one of our biggest sellers. We have a lot of people that come into the market, they're here for a few years, then they move back closer to family, or they move to a different location. They've got some ability to be flexible because they are, they're able to choose where they want to be, and the time's passed and they're ready to move on to the next spot. The second type of seller is the one who is actually moving up or potentially moving down in property. So they're staying in the same market, but they have something to sell because they want to be in a different type of property. Now, that's the person that a lot of times has questions of, if I'm selling now, then I'm turning around and buying in the same market. Does it make sense? Every individual seller's got a different scenario, and there's different things you should look at, but here's why it can make a lot of sense. If you own a home right now and you want to get into a bigger home, maybe a neighborhood that has a few more amenities that you're looking for, maybe a more updated home. One of the things we know right now is with interest rates the way that they are, your buying power is significantly higher probably than it's been in the last 15 years, because the buying power is directly related to the interest rate, which helps determine what your payment is going to be. So the or the seller today that's looking at selling, buying up into maybe a more expensive property, then if they were to wait for a while, then they may find out that even though they get to the point where maybe they pay less in terms of a price, then at that point, if the interest rate goes up, they've got less buying power. The same happens for the buyer that's maybe downsizing. You sell today, you're at a really, really good price. You're buying in a market where that seller's probably getting a really good price, but your buying power relative to the interest rate that you've got right now that we know of and can't go a whole lot lower is really strong. So for the right circumstances, that makes a ton of sense, and a lot of people are making that move. And then the last seller is someone who is purchasing or selling their property that's more of an income generating or an investment property to then get into something that makes a better return. That doesn't necessarily have to be another property. So I'll give you an example. A lot of people own second homes or investment properties here along the ocean front, the golf courses, and they use them some, and they also rent them. Well, they look every year and they say, it's not a huge moneymaker, but it's doing okay. Right now, that seller should be looking at what their long-term plans are, because prices are probably higher. Well, they're higher than they've been in years for that type of property. And depending on how much they use it, if they can go and turn around and take their equity, or if they're paying a few dollars every year to keep it, take that money that they're spending on something that performs better, is closer to home they can use more often, or just simply a different investment, then that can be a great financial move. Because a lot of those folks have owned those properties for a while. They've been waiting for the market to increase in the prices, and now's the time to where if they cashed out now, It's not a primary residence. They don't have to buy something else to live in. They can pull that money off the table, sit for a while, and find something that performs better or that's closer, more convenient for them. Those are the three types of sellers that we're seeing most often in this market. And of course, there's other reasons, but I want to make sure that you had an understanding of kind of what we're seeing. And if you're in that position where you're wondering, does it make sense? Reach out to me. We can take a look at what your goals are and find out whether or not the market is the right time for you to sell, or if maybe holding a little bit longer makes more sense for you. I appreciate you watching these updates. I always want to make sure that I deliver great content and great information on the market, and I look forward to talking with you soon.